Leave it to the summary track of Ad Infinitum's Chapter 3 downfall to boast the big guns, so to speak, right? Not just of Ad Infinitum's regard, which Chapter 3 thus far has been just a beautiful journey to go down in its entirety. But we have a collaborative artist here, similar to Ad Infinitum's work in the past from some of their other releases, let's say, for example, Chapter 2 with Afterlife, one of my favorite pieces on that album and their work generally. That piece, still to this day, I find it leaves me in a shocked state on how good it is in its original vision and craft. It is such an experimental work of theirs, and I love it. It is one of their best pieces. If you've never heard Ad Infinitum before and this is a first engagement, go consult that piece if you haven't. Afterlife is just exquisite. And Niels Johan Malin from Amaranth, his vocal work. And I'm going to consult Amaranth very soon, though I am familiar with their work in part. Not only through their percussionist, I forget his name, in fact, Melissa Bonney's real-life partner, who's made a very recent presence on this channel through consultation of the Dark Side of the Moon work, which Melissa Bonney's a part of as her lead vocalist alongside, I forget again his name, but one of the artists from Aftermath, and two from Feuerschwangs. I love that group. I've said many times, the European metal scene is full of so many big draws and names. Ad Infinitum certainly qualifies as one. And I was saying that with Niels Johan Malin, I will be consulting Amaranth very soon. I am familiar with their work, though, in part, and I'll explain more of what I mean when I get to that video, but that track was exquisite. I cannot recommend Afterlife enough, as generally speaking, any of Ad Infinitum's work. And we're certainly, taking a lot of exposure and consideration tonight of Ad Infinitum through Chapter 3. I promised you, as of covering Seth, one of the singles, if you're not familiar, that I was going to do a full-length album coverage, reaction series. And I don't often do this. It's seldom, right? Because I do have a lot of artists I consult. So I try and be very fair to just how many names I have to process. And I got a growing list at this point, not only from my own considerations, but and a sundry of names from your recommendations, and you've given many, and God willing, I'll get to probably every one of them. We'll see. With time, I'm working my way through. It takes time, and I'll leave it at that. It just takes a lot of time and effort and pleasant labor, because these are very much passion projects for me. I've said for a long time, music coverage for me on this channel, it's been a long-term goal. Since the founding of this channel, really, and over 2023, I'm evolving that vision even better than I thought I would. I'm very happy with the direction this channel's taking, specifically in that regard. And it's a treat to be able to feature talents such as Ad Infinitum, as music for me very much is a personal connection point in my life. It is my favorite of the artistic forms out there today. Though, many of the expressions I cover on this channel speak to me in different ways. Each style is individualized in its language and its effect. Music is very much a first love, and groups like Ad Infinitum remind me of my devotion to the music scene and why I love it so much as an art form. Their music to me, again, it's not just because I'm a devout metalhead, but even more so, specifically, the symphonic metal direction just jives easily with me, because I love symphonic orchestral stuff, and anything with string involvement just impresses me immediately. But the vision of Ad Infinitum and their capabilities as artists, ever since I engaged with them in December for the first time, I've fallen madly in love with them. And Chapter 3 is just another testament to why I love them so much as artists. And I'm sure many of you longtime Infinitors could attest to that. Again, we might not necessarily share in, rank of years. I am far younger than you in a 3-month exposure at this point, but I'd say in adoration, we're certainly at an even tier. Like I said, I've fallen madly in love with many of the European talents I've covered, and Ad Infinitum is no exception. So let's cap off the journey for now. Although I've also stated in previous coverage, in consideration of the journey through Ad Infinitum's latest chapter, that I'm covering these a bit out of order, because the album debuted early for me, given I live in the appropriate time zone where it debuted, at least in the position that I could acquire my pre-order at 9 p.m. So I had some time tonight to cover it going into tomorrow, which will be the debut of the video for the title track, or not title track, but the main first initial track, Eternal Reigns. And we'll consult that in the morning. By the time you'll see it, again, I'm hoping to have everything uploaded at the same time. Well, I don't know. I'm going to try, though. Or maybe in close window batches. Anywho, for now, this is the capping track in consideration of the album's lineup with legends. And as I said, it's a collaborative work, very similar to Afterlife, with the talents of Chrigel Glanzmann, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce the name, and I apologize if it's a mispronunciation on my part. His affiliation, though, is familiarized to me because he's a member of Alluviati. Again, forgive me if I'm botching the style of the names I'm supposed to go with here. They've been recommended to me, and I will probably get to them eventually. I've not heard Chrigel's talents yet, so this will be the first introduction in that respect, but I love collaborative work. And that's been a mainstay in European talent that I oftentimes utilize that networking path to gain first introductions. I've done this, for example, in fact, when I first approached Ad Infinitum in the first place was through a collaboration with Norwegian artist Mortimia, or Morten Wieland. Mortimia is a solo project. He's from Sirenia. Maybe many of you know that name. Highly capable talent in the symphonic metal scene. I absolutely love them. But even though I'm still making my way through a lot of their songs of what I've planned to cover, what I've heard is just, it's amazing. But Mortimia, wonderful work on part of those efforts. And that's how I came across Melissa Bonney, was through the Devastation Bound track collaboration, which I cannot recommend enough. And from there, I launched into Ad Infinitum. And from Ad Infinitum and Melissa Bonney's talents, I've learned so many other names of groups I will be consulting in the future through work she's been associated with, or maybe other artists have come through, like Nils Johan Malin with Aftermath, and now with Chrigel Glanzmann of Alluviati. Again, forgive me if that's wrong. They'll come eventually. Again, I love that networking model. It's just like the spiral with Europe. It's so funny to me. And, other artists and geographies, to be fair, but Europe's been a dominant, mention in that respect. Okay, legends. The summary track. I'm going to go ahead and cue this up. We're going to listen to the song together for the first time. And if you're not familiarized with how I format my content on this channel, this is the first introduction for you in terms of my music-related stuff. I try and accommodate listener taste to the best extent that I can. So if you'd like to read along with the narrative of said pieces that I feature, I will have the lyrics available for you in the video, and they will track along with the song as we proceed through it. All right. Legends. Here we go. Let's get, maybe for you, this will be an introduction to Ad Infinitum. Maybe some of you approaching this are going to be new listeners, and I really hope that you come to love them as much as I do, and I think you will. But for all of us, maybe sitting here, maybe not all of us, but maybe some of us, together, it certainly is for me, this will be an introduction to Chrigel Glanzmann. Let's get a perspective on him, and to some extent, the talents through him of Alluviati. That's definitely him.
Define the laws of time. Thousands of years of evolution later, we light a candle to salute them.
I like his accent.
But the wind of our sins expels its flame, leaving us again and again in the ignorant darkness.
And it's interesting to feature a spoken word element in the outro track rather than the introduction. It's kind of fascinating. This is a good conclusion work, in my opinion. I like the rhythm to it, but there's just energy it feels, again, like a sentimental conclusion. Nice snares. Good inflections. Beautiful pitch range here. Good guitar riff interludes in that section too. Great placement. I love the vocal presence here. Ah, it's great. Good effects. Grand presentations. I love it. interesting, softer regression. That's fascinating to me. Interesting return, a lot of floating around there. That's kind of interesting key change placement. Just even for a second. Good riffs too. Satisfactory. Especially, I'm assuming, again, as we're approaching the closing verse. A lot of variants with that. Good riff structure. Okay. I wondered if there would be a key change. In context of the album, it's a good closure. Totally works in its favor. Nice bounce back. I like it. You can't say they don't go for it. That's beautiful. I love that piece. Great orchestration, in my opinion. A lot of interesting points to it. I mean, in terms of my familiarity, it takes several individualized paths. The introduction, and I don't know if this is familiarized with, many of you maybe are familiar with Alluviati, or, again, forgive me if I'm getting that wrong, or, and feel free to clarify down below in the comments. I welcome any corrections on mispronunciations. Please provide that. I love to be able to be correct on things, and as well as names. With Chrigel Glanzmann, is that a mainstay for him to do spoken intros or like spoken word performances on that on those artists' works? I find that really interesting too on the placement, because normally I would think with every artist I listen to, the spoken word intro comes in the first initial piece, or maybe midway through, or maybe after some interludes or pauses. And if I look at the lyrics again, because I haven't looked at, as I said, Eternal Rains yet, that's coming. There's, no vocal, no spoken word interlude. That's interesting they cap it off at the end, you know? I've not necessarily heard that point of entrance before. It's a good addition, in my opinion. It certainly mounts anticipation, especially when the riffs kick in and you got Melissa Bonney's vocals. I love the original key. I thought the play around with the choruses were just wonderful. The structure of that was great. The energy to it, the riff, and the harshness of some of those riffs, and the variability, especially towards the end on those the harder ones. Man, that sticks. Gnarly and just so satisfactory on a universal level for me, at least in this song. It is such a fitting closure. And here, I liked the key change towards the last measure. I've spoken oftentimes about, that's a particular element on many groups, and Ad Infinitum has played around substantially with that in the past, or substantially, if you're not familiar. It's an element I sometimes am a bit mixed on, to be frank. It depends on the song, it depends on the artist, it depends on perhaps how close and tightly knit you feel to the established tones in the chorus. For me, this worked, because again, it's a closure. There was enough, I think, of a misdirection too, because I almost felt like it was going to segue back, and the second riff kicks in, you're like, okay, where are we going here? Like that last instrumental break before the chorus kicks in. I think it was the instrumental break. Yes. Okay. So that section, it just takes on such an interesting path. It just really floats around in your expectations. Positive subversion of expectations. That really applies. Maybe we don't oftentimes perhaps acknowledge that there is a positive side to that phrasing. I know it's oftentimes spoken of in the negative, especially in the cinema space, but I experience that quite a lot with the music I listen to, and I think Legends is a wonderful testament to when it's done well. Again, that break structure to me was just wonderful, and how it segued into that key change, and it certainly feels, again, like a good wrap-up. Not just to the song, but the entire album. It really worked for me. And especially, too, how a song kind of floats back again to that harsh riff territory towards that end. It's a wonderful capping piece. Really memorable, too, and great. Again, as I said, the writing on their pieces is always so strong. And I wonder, again, like I said, with the conceptual vision, I've spoken of this many times, and many groups in the rock space play around with conceptual vibes. But there oftentimes is a real-world draw that you can extract. And I've heard in certain places, I forget where, that you can have an experience of ad infinitum, that the lyrics are written intentionally to have that translation, if you wish to take it. So you could look for, in the basis and context of this, you could look for that historical, artistic vision of, Egyptian, the Cleopatra story, as I've been told that's where this is going. And I can certainly see vibes, at least on the Egyptian front, with certain elements, maybe even ones I've researched into. But I can also see maybe real-world philosophies and draws kind of tied in. So I look at like the scope of this introduction, like in the hallways of eternity, their names echo, define the laws of time, thousands of years of evolution. Later, we light a candle to salute them. And later it says, actually, I'll read the creativity of this again. But the wind of our sins expels its flame, leaving us again and again in the ignorant darkness. That's a beautiful interlude. Really, our legacy ruins and tears a wasteland. Evolution is a lie we all fell for. Now all I want to know is the reason why. Like, it's just so interesting in terms of the application of the possibilities. Quite frankly, I mean, you could. I'd welcome, by the way, any interpretations down below. It's sometimes hard to, when you run by the model that I do, in first engagements, especially on raw takes, it's kind of hard to engage with a piece and try to be considerate of every aspect of a song when I cover it. It's sometimes challenging because you want to give fair attention to elements that need a greater mulling over period. You have to better analyze them to understand their true focus. And I feel with this song, like I need to sink into it a bit more. So for those of you who perhaps, and of course this will apply in post, because the entire album's going to be a repeat listen for me, as always. With Ad Infinitum, that universally applies to their work. I look at the structure of that, and I'm like, I feel like I need to sit with that line a bit. I need to ponder what it's saying, right? And maybe for some of you, it'll be the same. I'd love to hear if that's perhaps a parallel both of us share down below, if you wish to disclose that. And again, I welcome any perspective, and especially for burgeoning infinitors or new infinitors on the scene. Of course, you longtime infinitors, I'm sure, will make your thoughts known. I welcome your guys' thoughts, and I've had pleasant exchanges with you in the past. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this wrap-up piece. I thought it was exquisite, but I'd also love to hear from those of you who perhaps are approaching us at a first introduction. What did you think of it? And does this compel you to look into Ad Infinitum's work? Like I said, you should. Take it on faith. I did. I've loved the journey with everything I've heard, and you, I think, will too. Let me know your thoughts down below if you wish to disclose your perspective, and perhaps, again, what this song says to you. I mean, again, I think the writing is quite creative, and as a wrap-up piece, it works sufficiently well. And in presence, it is trademark Ad Infinitum. I love them. Cannot wait to hear more. Now, as I also said, to reiterate, the party might be summing up quite quickly with Chapter 3. I've covered everything thus far except for the title track. Or not title track, here I go again. The introductory track. That's coming, Eternal Reigns. But I'm delaying on that because, again, I'm looking at all this the night before. And that video does not debut till the morning. So that'll be the capping track. I know it's a bit of a weird order I picked. So we'll come back for at least one more round of Chapter 3 in the future. But if we're going to end the album, or at least consider it that way because this is a final track, Chapter 3 has been, so far, in truth, pleasant to listen to, and I knew it would be, because we're talking about Ad Infinitum here, and as always, they are so engaging and entertaining as a band. I love spotlighting them. I, of course, will into the future. Can't wait to hear more from their artistic offerings, but Chapter 3, exquisite. Love this piece, and the album generally. It's been a really satisfactory ride thus far. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.